What's happening, YouTube? This is Archer Bluth coming at you with another video, and as per usual, hit that like button if you enjoyed, comment if you have any thoughts, and subscribe if you'd like to catch any future content. Today, I want to talk about Mehdi Hasan and how he kind of bodied Briahna Joy Graham. Now, the premise for it is he basically put forth a lesser of two evils argument on X, Twitter, whatever it's called. Yeah, there's a blue check mark there. And he was sort of called out by someone. I've left that person out of this thread because I think they are a private person on a public platform rather than a public entity, so it's probably not fair to expose them to any more harassment or anything like that, so I've left them out. But they basically put forth the argument that you'd be supporting a genocide. To which Mehdi responded with probably a question that I always ask people like this, which is, who would you prefer, a Harris or a Trump presidency, given the issues that you've outlined? And he got a non-answer. And in getting that non-answer, he responded back with, I notice you say a lot of words, but still haven't answered my question. It's very telling. Now, the question answered, the response he got was generally like the selling point, the talking points for voting third party. And it doesn't really answer the question that a lot of us, people, myself included, even though I don't have a hat in a race, a direct hat, correction. It's a question that we ask, which is, who would you prefer? Would you prefer a Donald Trump presidency or a Kamala Harris presidency? And we never really get the answer. As such, we know that these people are deeply unserious or dishonest. If you listen to like the Vanguard, for example, and you have someone like Gavin from the Vanguard, Gavin is perfectly capable of being honest enough to turn around and say, look, I'm supporting the Greens, but this is a two-horse race. My support for the Greens is there to try and help build the base up. At the end of the day, out of the two options, I would much prefer Kamala Harris or a Biden presidency. It is what it is. And you have to commend that honesty, because at that point you can tell that Gavin's thought about this, he's considered his vote, and he's voting for a very specific reason, not to own the Dems. That's not how it works. And it's very telling here with Briahna Joy Gray entering the fray, with her post, that a lot of these people are deeply unserious. Now, there's two issues I have with this, which I'll get into in a moment. I'll flag that for you too. But basically, Mehdi responds back to that usual talking point with, I notice you say a lot of words, but still haven't answered my question. It's very telling. To which Briahna Joy Gray responds, I feel like chatty patty, but I'm going to read this out anyways. Imagine if you used your platform to help an anti-genocide candidate solidify generational policy realignment instead of manufacturing consent for the pro-genocide party. It's not too late. I want to start off with one thing. First and foremost, Briahna Joy Gray is a lawyer. That sentence is one of the worst formulated, like just a simple comma. After political realignment would have made that much easier to read and a tough slog to read out to you. It would be very straightforward to read that. Imagine, comma, if you used your platform to help an anti-genocide candidate solidify generational political realignment, comma, instead of manufacturing consent for the pro-genocide party. First and foremost, there's a couple of issues. What political realignment? I just want to raise this as we go through. The Greens Party has lost a smaller share of the popular vote with every successive election that has come around. So you're talking about solidifying a generational political alignment when there is no realignment, full stop. That's the fact of the matter. You're not securing anything or solidifying anything. This thing is as soft and as consistent as puppy shit. Pardon my French. Have you ever seen puppy stool before? It's either real soft, you can run a spoon through it if you really wanted to. Like puppies on milk shit is what I'm talking about, not when they start moving on to solids. Run a spoon through it. It's a nightmare to clean up. It's basically liquid. So you're not solidifying a fucking thing. Now, that being said, Mehdi responds with the three barbs you had before. Now I'm painting Nick Claus, so it is what it is. Where he basically says, one, he's not okay with the Trump presidency under any circumstance, which is kind of the correct take to have. If you're a progressive, you are. Two, he accepts hard math and she doesn't. It's very true. This party's been sub 2% and has been regressing since the 2000. I want to make that very clear. Three, people like her, Butch Ware, Jill Stein, I'm throwing her into the fray here because she's deeply unserious, have further alienated a lot of other progressives because they engage in really toxic behavior. Now, he lists the toxic behavior alongside all the toxic behaviors as an aside. So that's my little gripe with that tweet. But nonetheless, like the name calling, the gatekeeping, the purity testing, the circular firing squad, basically the reverse McCarthyism. So essentially anyone that doesn't espouse their beliefs or hold their political strategy is basically a democratic shill. That sort of shit is really counterproductive as well. Now, absolutely bodied her. It gets a lot more personal. Don't want to include that stuff because I'm not really a tit-for-tat personal sort of person. I don't give a shit about that sort of stuff. I will say this. There are two issues that come up off the back of this. The first one is the Greens Party in the US is deeply unserious. If you look at the Greens Party anywhere else in the world, let's look at Australia, for example. The Greens Party in Australia, first and foremost, the things that differentiate the two. The Greens Party in Australia has a presence in all levels of government. We got state elections coming up soon, and there are Greens candidates out there working and pressing for issues. They do the same thing for council. They do the same thing for city elections here in Australia. And they also do a lot of advocacy work and activism work as well, where they're out there reaching the public directly in person, not just handing out flyers, but standing with people to fight for certain rights or to fight against certain issues and raise awareness for issues. I don't see that with the Greens Party in the US. It's all internet based. These motherfuckers literally sound like they couldn't order a pizza in person. And you saw that because you saw Jill Stein get up on the Breakfast Club, get pressed by Angela Ryan, fall apart like a soggy piece of tissue. The same thing happened when she went on Mehdi Hasan's platform. Fell apart like a soggy piece of tissue over some very basic questions. And it goes to show these people are deeply unserious. Further to this, if you look at the Greens Party, they only ever show up every 4 years for the presidential election. If they understood anything about how the sausage is made in the US when it comes to policy reform and legislation, let alone anywhere in the world, they had some sort of political literacy and legislative literacy, which, look, to be frank, Briahna Gray was a lawyer. There's no reason why she wouldn't understand how legislation is drafted and created. But they don't. Because if they did, they would have realized that Jill Stein just can't become the president and start signing in executive orders and things just change. That's not how it works. You need to have an entire political apparatus behind you that will put together a bill, get it passed in Congress, get it passed in Senate, and then get signed into effect. Essentially what you would have is the same status quo with Jill Stein as the president. She ain't doing shit. So I want to make that very clear. The Greens Party understands this in Australia, which is why they've spent decades building their political base. They put the fucking work in, they did it the right way. And as such, now you have Greens representatives influencing and putting their influence on pieces of legislation that represent their interests and their constituents' interests. You don't have that in the US. And you'll never have that in the US if you keep following charlatans and morons like Jill Stein, and to be frank, Dr. Butch Ware, down the fucking drain. That's the first one. The second one, and I want to be very clear here to avoid any confusion, but I'm pro-Palestine. I believe in the self-determination of Palestinians at to some extent, but ideally the repatriation, the reparations for them as well, and then on top of that, the pursuit of equality for them within Israel. If it has to be a one-state solution, whatever the country is called at that point, it's likely the entity will be Israel in some form or another. For that to no longer be an apartheid state, and for Palestinians and Israelis, as they are now, to live in peace and integrate with one another. That's an easy way to deal with the insurgency as well. A lot of defense experts have called this out because the way Israel engages in it at the moment is counterproductive. You have to ensure a quality of life for the people who you are subjugating to keep them quiet, and they're not doing that. Either way, all that aside, my views on Palestine, I'm quite staunchly pro-Palestine. I want to make that very clear. I find it very disgusting that people like Jill Stein and people like Briahna are cynically using the deaths of thousands of children, women, innocent people, tens of thousands, just in the last year alone. If we go over the course of the entire conflict, it's hundreds of thousands, right? To sell a political point is disgusting. And the fact that they're trying to draw a line in the sand with someone like Mehdi Hasan, who is, like me, been very pro-Palestine, has probably grown up in a pro-Palestine household. Like, people don't understand, I was born a Muslim. Ben Musliman adore them. Like, I was born a fucking Muslim. Maybe a formality. I do a lot of haram shit these days. Like, I don't drink anymore, but I got tattoos. I eat pork. I have drank alcohol before. Like, I do haram shit. So I'm going to hell. Like, I'm not going to Jannah or whatever it's called anyways. I can't remember what it is. But nonetheless, I was born a Muslim. And that sort of gives you a tie to it. But more so, I've seen this play out so many a time. Like, I was young enough. My dad is someone that was, I wouldn't say fortunate enough, but he's a huge Fella fan. I guess it's fortunate to be a Fella fan. Fella's an awesome musician. But Fella criticised apartheid South Africa for a long time. If he wasn't criticising the Nigerian government, he's criticising apartheid South Africa. Go and listen to Beast of No Nation. And if you don't believe me. And this, like, the things that Botha was saying back then, this uprising will bring out the beast in us. That's the same shit that Benjamin Netanyahu and his Likud fucking coalition are doing right now. Right? And if you are not pro-Palestine on the basis of fighting against the genocide, do it for the fact that it's an apartheid. But that being said, for someone like Briahna Joy-Gray, who doesn't give a fuck about Palestinians, I'm going to keep it a bean. She may have lost her job, but she didn't lose that much of an income. To call someone like Mehdi Hasan, who intrinsically, like every Muslim out there, intrinsically is pro-Palestine. You have to understand what it is to be a Muslim in Western society to then understand what it is to be pro-Palestine, right? To tell him that he's a genocide apologist, that's fucking disgusting. For what? So she can make more Patreon money? Fuck that asshole. So I want to make this very clear. For people who, like third-party supporters who are using this issue, and I'm not talking about the Muslims that will go and support them, I'm not talking about the concerned citizens that will go and vote for them. If you're going to vote for them for those reasons, by all means, you do you. But for those politicians who didn't give a fuck about Palestine enough to criticize Ukraine, what's happening in Ukraine, because that's synonymous to what's happening to Palestine. For those of you that didn't have the fucking nerve to do that, and you turn around and now you're trying to use this as a wedge issue, the blood's on your hands. I want you to know that. Sounds a bit mean what I said. It's a pretty dark turn, but it's true. The blood is on their hands. Wake the fuck up, understand the hard math like Mehdi Hasan said, and realize there are two horses in this race. One where we can stem the blood flow, whatever you want to call it, and stop the killing, even if it takes a little bit of time. One where the killing's accelerated. Use your fucking brains. That's it. I'll see you all soon. Be easy, be safe. Bye-bye.